Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day!
I hate Valentine's Day.
I hate Valentine's Day!
There have been some crazy events that have happened on the most romantic day of the year. The Stardust nightclub in Dublin, Ireland had a Valentine's Day disco party on February 14, 1981. At just after midnight, the fire started somewhere in the roof space above the club. The music was so loud that no one noticed the fire. That was until roof materials and hot substances began dropping on partygoers' heads from the heat of the fire. Everyone panicked. Partygoers rushed to the exits only to find many different obstacles in their way. Padlocked emergency exits, tons of tables and chairs blocking their way as 841 people attended the party. Many people had succumbed to the smoke and fire by the time emergency responders arrived. 48 people died and 200 were unfortunately injured. During World War II, the city of Prague was bombed on February 14, 1945. This was all by accident. The citizens of Prague were horrified as the Allied forces bombed their city. Pilots were thinking that it was the targeted city of Dresden. They dropped 150 tons of bombs on the city. That city is located only 45 miles from Dresden. The accidental aerial assault resulted in 701 deaths and 1,184 injuries. All of them were civilians. Apparently the plane's radar were not working that day. The 8th Armory Air Force Squadron had to manually calculate the distance to their target of Dresden. This navigational miscalculation left about 1,100 people homeless. Hundreds of homes and historical sites were now destroyed. However, Dresden was also bombed with 2 strikes. The fires from the first strike could be seen about 500 miles away. The city was absolutely destroyed. It is estimated between 35,000 and possibly up to 135,000 were killed. What is really odd about this is that the city was not an important wartime industrial producer for Germany. This was definitely a controversial attack. Theodore Roosevelt had a sad day on Valentine's Day in 1884. He was working his job at the New York State Legislature as usual when he was suddenly summoned home. When he got there, he found out that his mother, Mittie, had passed away suddenly of typhoid fever. As if that isn't bad enough, only hours later, Roosevelt's wife, Alice Lee, whom had given birth to their daughter Alice only 2 days earlier, lost her life to Bright disease, which is an inflammatory kidney disease. He wrote later, "The light has gone out of my life." Well, he moved to Dakota where he became a rancher and a local sheriff for 2 years before returning back to New York. The 1920 Chicago gangsters. In the 1920s, Chicago had several gangs that ruled the streets. Al Capone, aka Scarface, was the biggest player of all of them. The Prohibition era, which prohibited the making and sale of alcohol, was in full swing. Bootlegging was making gangsters a lot of money, along with other businesses like gambling and prostitution. Competition was heavy for a piece of the action. Capone was raking in upwards to $60 million a year in his business ventures. His main rival was another famous gangster, George "Bugs" Moran. On February 14, 1929, some gunmen dressed as police officers entered the 2012 North Clark Street garage where Bugs Moran had a bootlegging operation. According to the police, these men pretended to arrest the 7 men there. Then these imposters lined them up, had them turn around, face the wall, and then shot them down. Witnesses said they saw men dressed as police leave the building after hearing the shots. Those witnesses, including Miss Alphonsine Moran, received a letter stating to keep their mouths shut. Moran left town immediately after receiving the letter. No one, including Capone, was ever charged with the crime. He apparently was in Florida at the time. However, all signs point to that notorious gangster, as all 7 of the murdered men were associated with Bugs Moran. To this day, it remains a huge mystery in the crime world. Well, all fans of romance have a great deal of gratitude to St. Valentine. Although we're not exactly sure his identity, it remains a mystery. According to legend, Valentine was just an ordinary priest who lived in the 3rd century. Nothing stood out about this humble priest who did his normal priestly duties. Rome at the time was ruled by Emperor Claudius III, aka Claudius the Cruel. The Roman army was having difficulty enlisting soldiers. Claudius, for some reason, concluded that it was due to men's strong attraction to women. women. They would rather be with their wives and lovers than join his military. His solution to this weird problem was to ban all marriages and engagements. This in his mind would cause men to join the Roman military. Valentine realized that this decree was ridiculous and cruel and continued to perform marriage ceremonies in secret. Well, Emperor Claudius discovered what the priest was doing. He sentenced him to be clubbed to death. Wait, what? Clubbed to death? And then the icing on the cake is to have his head cut off. This is unbelievable. Valentine died on February 14, 270. Well, not all is lost. Because of his great contribution to love, Valentine was named a saint. If you'd like, today you can go see his skull on display at the Basilica of Santa Maria in Rome. Well, these murders, bombings, unfortunate deaths, and tragedy all happened on the most romantic day of the year. Valentine's Day is not always a bed of roses. That is strange indeed. We'll keep the videos coming here on Strange History. Hey, check out our video about the Alamo.